All right, here we go. I always miss it. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Coming to you a couple of days late. That's okay. You know, we do one or two other things aside from this, right? So sometimes it gets pushed back a little bit, but that only gave us an opportunity this morning to talk about a few things that happened yesterday, that happened over the weekend, last weekend, some things that are coming up. And so certainly last night, and I've never been a big fan. I don't think you have either. Sometimes you are, of the NFL draft. They do a really good job with that. They've hyped it up as a spectacle. But we'll start there in a second. But first, how are you? How are things there in the great Midwest?
The weather's been crazy. And I think we had a threat of snow a couple days ago. It's been the 30s again. Over the weekend, it was in the 80s. So that's also just Cleveland weather in general. You never know what you're going to get one day.
Yeah, springtime. Springtime in Cleveland. There you go. All right, let's jump in. NFL draft, obviously a big night for both the Jets and the Giants. And without, I'm not going to front. You know these players better than I do. Some of them, I'm not going to front. Most of them I didn't know. Some of them I did know. But I just know when someone is usually drafted out of Georgia or Alabama or LSU or any of those SEC teams, they usually turn out to be pretty good. And I think your Giants did a pretty good job last night. What's your take on the Giants, who also declined, didn't up Daniel Jones? That kind of got under the radar. Didn't up Daniel Jones for a fifth year, right? So I think this is really the make or break year for him. But give us your take on the Giants and how they made out last night.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the Daniel Jones thing because I had seen, like you said, it was kind of quiet, but the coach and GM were going to ownership to discuss that, and I guess the thought is, well, we won't pick up his fifth year option, which kind of makes sense because then this year, like if he doesn't do well, you're not on the hook for him next year. If he does do well, you can extend him, you can franchise tag him, you can do kind of whatever you want. As far as the Giants draft, I love the two picks. I think first of all, the Giants needed help pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Like their wide receiving core is pretty good. I mean, you have Saquon Barkley, who's pretty good, but like, first of all, the offensive line has been horrendous the last few years. I think I saw that they were ranked 30th last year, probably with Pro Football Focus. I'd have to look it up myself, but like having what's his name, Kevin Neal, guy is like 300 pounds. The guy is a monster, and having him protecting Daniel Jones, opening up lanes for Saquon, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Thibodeau as well, I think, is going to be a really good addition. I know that they have some questions about his character, and we'll see. But I think, especially with a team like the Giants, where basically you're rebuilding from scratch, I know like they still have some pieces here and there, but I think starting with the offensive line and the defensive line was a great start. I also looking at a lot of like the experts, everyone's saying A pluses across the board. So that gets me excited. Yeah. And also the Giants division. First of all, fun fact, no team has won back-to-back division titles since 2004. So we're, yeah. Last time was the Eagles winning 4 times.
Wow. So, okay. Wow.
So I don't know. It's like, who else is good in that division? You have the Commanders with Carson Wentz. He's okay. The Eagles, the Eagles did just get AJ Brown, so that's a little scary. And then the Cowboys always seem to have a lot of hype and then not live up to it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. I think that the Giants really served themselves well here. I think that, like I texted you last night, I think there's going to start to be some hope here, as we're in just New York in general. Both teams been such a football drought. You know, Were you surprised that there was no quarterback selected in the top 10?
No, I think first of all, you look at a lot of the teams, like for example, number one, Jacksonville, they have their quarterback. Maybe the Lions, but like a lot of the teams already, I feel like have their quarterback in place. And also a lot of this is not a good quarterback draft in general. So I'm not that surprised by it.
Yeah.
I will add this with the Giants too. Joe Shane for his first round and his first draft. Someone had said it this way: he's correcting all the mistakes that Dave Gettleman would have made.
Well,
So, but
yeah.
I do think that he's done a good job. But yeah, I'm curious because the Steelers got the dude from Pittsburgh, so that'll be interesting. And then also Malik Willis will probably end up going sometime today, so we'll see how that rolls out.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved his reaction also. That was extremely emotional. The Pittsburgh quarterback, when he got the word from the Steelers that he was going, that's a great video as well. There was some really great moments, I thought, in the draft. I'll stay with the Giants for a second. I'll get to the Jets real quick. But I love how they took some kids that years ago did some things with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they let them actually announce some of the players. Have you seen the reaction from the young man who announced the Giants' first pick?
I thought I have heard something about it. Was he like in tears or something?
No. They just were fist bumping, chest bumping, everything. You have to go watch it. It's phenomenal. The NFL can do some things like that really, really good. We could kill the NFL on a lot of things, but when they put on an event like that, they really do a good job. Listen, the Jets, I think equally got to give them an A+ as well. I mean, you definitely already have a great nickname here for Sauce, Big Apple Sauce. And so the amazing statistic, and him I didn't know. The wide receiver from Ohio State, I actually knew him, and he's a playmaker. And the Jets have done their darndest over the years to get these playmakers and then trade them away. So hopefully he's somebody who stays for a while, because they're definitely also developing a few other playmakers that hopefully they'll hold on to. So I think that Wilson has got a couple of really, really good receivers now. I think this guy's definitely an NFL receiver, Garrett Wilson. But the other pick, I don't know if you saw this, Kay. You know that in his 3 years, I guess he only went to college here for 3 years, that not one touchdown was thrown successfully against him. I mean, that's just amazing for a cornerback. I mean,
oh wow,
and they definitely need that, because the Jets gave up some big plays at some really crucial times, if you may remember right, in some games last year. And so
Tom Brady.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There was some times where it was just head scratching. So I think the Jets are on the right track as well. I think the coaching is solid. I think that their GM now knows kind of what he's doing. And I mean, it's going to be a big year for the quarterback to prove himself, even though it'll only be his second year, but it's going to be a pivotal year already for him, because I think the Jets are finally surrounding him with some talent, and they shored up, the secondary, which they really, really needed. And so I thought it was a really good draft for them. Again, I think when you get somebody out of schools like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, even, you rest assured that those players are probably going to do well. So the NFL really, really did a good job. Stole the spotlight on what was a big, big night in the NBA. So let's shift gears to there. Let's start out in New Orleans, where that crowd, I got to see some of that game, a good part of the second half, and that crowd was so into that team, and they put together a pretty good team. I knew New Orleans was getting good when they, the 2 games I got to see at the Garden this year was one against New Orleans, and the Knicks got smoked by them that night. And so I knew they were starting to put together a good team, and they're going to be reckoned with next year, especially if they figure out how they can, maybe flip Zion or if Zion is healthy. We'll start there if he's healthy. But if he's not, and if they feel like he doesn't want to be there, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to be there, because he's that seems to be a pretty good city for sports as well as for basketball. But the Suns put them away, and what a game by Chris Paul. So talk a little bit about Phoenix and the Pelicans, and then I really want to hear your thoughts as the East is also now set.
Well, I'll start with Chris Paul. I think that he's had a really good run here. I think more importantly, Chris Paul has kind of brought a little bit about that stabilization, because like Devin Booker is clearly the best player on that team, and him being out for a significant amount of time can be very, very jarring. I know the Suns made the finals last year, but they're still a very young team. I think that having them kind of settle down, Chris Paul kind of being that leader, kind of can help them as they take that next step, as they face Dallas next, which that's not going to be easy.
Oh boy. Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
So I think that that's been really good for them. I'm excited to see what's going to happen for them moving forward, because I feel like going into the final or going into the playoffs, both of us were like, the Suns are by and large the best team in the NBA. Like they're going to just march through the playoffs, and then they lose one of their biggest players. But I feel like I remember watching a video where they kind of mentioned that like it seems like at some point there's always a major injury which completely changes the course of the playoffs. Yeah. I think another one of those big injuries is Chris Middleton, who's going to be out for the entire second round at least, probably more. Grade 2 MCL sprain. That's not a I'm back in a couple weeks. So
the Bucks really need him. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And so Chris Paul going 14 for 14, which I believe set a playoff record, which was amazing. And, Booker came back last night. You could tell he was a little bit rusty, but you're right. Chris Paul just kept that team in there. And New Orleans was really, just a couple of steals away from picking that off and forcing a game 7, which would have been amazing. And so the Suns move on, and they get to play Dallas. And I have to say, I think that Jason Kidd has been the difference there, because Dallas has not gotten past the first round. I thought they did some really nice pickups. They had a few nice pickups at the trading deadline with Dinwiddie. Getting him, I think, has been big for them. It takes a lot of the pressure off Luka, but he's finally, now gotten out of the first round, and they could be a dangerous team. You have any initial thoughts on Dallas and Phoenix?
I think that's going to be a tougher series. I think once again it's going to be based on the health of Devin Booker. But Luka could be like that guy that takes that next step. Would I be that surprised if Dallas makes the Western Conference Finals? Like, imagine a Dallas Golden State Western Conference Finals. That'd be very interesting. I'm going to say right now still Phoenix, because I think even with Devin Booker not at 100%, I think they're still a better team. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas pulled off the upset there. I do also want to give credit to New Orleans, who I think is I feel like they haven't gotten enough credit for what they've done all year. Not having Zion all season, despite all of he's coming back, he's not coming back. He's coming back, he all of a sudden had surgery. He's coming back, making dunks, and then he's not coming back. They started out 1-12, and then just like that, not only do they get through the play-in tournament, but they took the Suns, who, like we said before, they were the best team in the NBA, best record and everything like that. They took them to 6 games. So imagine if Zion was on the floor for that, how that would have looked. So, and I think a big guy there has been CJ McCollum.
No
kind
doubt.
of bring that veteran leadership. So,
no doubt. Yeah.
We'll see how that looks next year for them. But I'm still going to go Suns.
Well, I am too, but I think that is, I'm with you, man. I would be stunned, but probably not shocked if Dallas got past Phoenix. But I think that's going to be one heck of a series. Going back to New Orleans for a second, I'm loving, because I want to get to Memphis for a second. I'm loving how some of these non-traditional NBA cities, the fans just got so into it. I mean, that crowd was so loud last night in New Orleans and gave them such a hand when they knew that, that they weren't going to win. And to the point it led, Willie Green, the coach, to tears. And as he was, hugging a former teammate, and Chris Paul, that's how long Chris Paul's been around. Um, but also, if you caught the end of the Philadelphia-Toronto series, and how that city, and that's a little bit more traditional because they've been there for a while, but how that city just embraced and they couldn't stop applauding. The last like 2 minutes, they just started applauding this team. That I think that was about 2 minutes left. They took all of the starters out, put in the other ones, and they didn't have. You talk about an injury. They didn't have Van Fleet, who's their best player.
Oh, yeah.
Who had been through pretty much all of that series, and yet they took the Sixers to almost the brink. I mean, the Sixers handily beat them last night. But I love to see, how the fans are just, they show that appreciation even if you get to the first round and you lose, because Toronto overcame a lot. And obviously, it was great for them to finally be back home this past year after, being playing on the road and different cities for the last couple of years or so. But I want to get to Memphis, where the crowds in Memphis and Minnesota also, and again, not very traditional. When you think of NBA cities, you don't really, even though Memphis and Minnesota have been around for a while, yet you don't really think of those two cities because they haven't had a ton of playoff success. But man, oh man, those two cities are just into it. And Ja Morant, oh my gosh, the way he pulled that game out the other night, because Memphis was that close to going up, 3-2, back solely against the wall. And boy, oh boy, he made just a spectacular play. And so who do you like to win that series as they go to a game 6 tonight?
I'm still going Memphis there. I'm going to give you credit here because I remember when Ja Morant was in college, like, yeah, no, this guy's going to be a good star. This is a guy I won on the Knicks. And of course, he's picked before the Knicks, which always seems to happen. But yeah, I think that at this point, it seems like Minnesota's kind of like celebrated too much mediocrity. I don't know if you've seen when after the playing game where they're celebrating like they won the NBA Finals.
Yes.
Karl Anthony Towns late in game 5 there is shushing the crowd, and of course they end up losing the game. I think Minnesota's taken a huge step forward. I like all of their young players. Anthony Edwards seems like the real deal and everything like that, but you're still in the playoffs and you could potentially beat this team, but I feel like you think that, well, getting here is good enough. So I kind of feel like Memphis is probably going to end it here, or if not, definitely in a game 7.
Yeah, well, because the game 7 would be back in Memphis. Yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised at all if that goes to get to 7 games, because Minnesota now at home, and again, these fans have been like the sixth man in these cities. Minnesota has been like that as well. Yeah, Ja Morant. I mean, you could just those 2 years that he was at Murray State, and they didn't. I thought they were going to do better in the tournament both years, but he's a special player, and that team rallies around him. They're one other really good player away from just being formidable. I mean, I think they won 52, 53 games still this year, which is great in the NBA. And I think if you look ahead, I do think they'll win that series one way or another. If you look ahead, and they'd be playing the Warriors, man, and that would be a lot of fun. The Warriors just look spectacular. Were you surprised that they close out Denver in 5 games that quick? I mean, with maybe the MVP of the league, although that team is really missing Jamal Murray. I know they didn't have him all year, but there's something missing. They were better last year, but were you surprised that the Warriors handled them that easily?
Not really, because I feel like the Warriors are kind of back to, this is the team that won 3 out of 5.
Wow.
I think that also you kind of see a lot of the selflessness when it comes to Golden State. with Steph Curry coming off the bench and still dropping 30 or whatever he was doing. To me, I'm looking more and more like Jokic, and I'm like, well, he doesn't fully look like. I mean, his last game was good, but he didn't really look very MVP like. He looked kind of like another team in New York. Not the Knicks, actually, for once. But I think I'm not that surprised because, like, a team like the Warriors, a team that's kind of been there, you have Steph, Draymond, Clay, like, they know how to win in the playoffs. It's just a matter of kind of executing. And also, like, this team isn't that different from the team that won like what 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like, they weren't that far removed from the finals, so I'm not that surprised. I do think Denver could be better next year. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. also being healthy would be a huge help for them.
Yeah, no question. You're making some really great points about the Warriors and where they're at. But Denver, yeah, something was definitely off with them. I mean, they had a good regular season. I mean, they were the 6th seed, which no one would have expected them to be that low. I mean, you had to, if you went into the season, certainly you had to pick them in the top 3 seeds. So yeah, they need their guys back. I mean, Jokic, there were some plays that he made were just spectacular. I'm just like, this guy, and he's like, he doesn't look that fast to me, but yet he gets the job done, but the Warriors are just really, really good. That is whoever they play, which we think is going to be Memphis. I think it's going to be just an interesting series. I mean, you look ahead, and we shouldn't look ahead in the NBA playoffs because you just never know. Although usually the NBA playoffs go according to form, but if you look ahead and you think about a Phoenix and Golden State Western Conference Finals, I'm there, man. That's must-see TV, So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Let's go to the East. All 4 teams are set. You made a really, I think, spot-on comment last night when we text. You said that you could see any one of those 4 teams going to the finals. So let's start with Bucks and Celtics. We have to get Dave back on. I'm going to hit Dave up and let's see if we can get him on next week, talk some Celtics. But the Celtics looked fantastic. They close out the Nets, even though those were close games. I don't want to say they just, that didn't seem like a typical sweep. It reminded me of the 2000 Mets Yankees World Series, which you look, it was only 5 games, but those 5 games were really, really close. All 4 games were relatively close here, but the Celtics are just a better team, and they are just playing at quite a level. And the Bucks are the Bucks. I mean, they're defending conference champs. They've got championship pedigree. They want to get back to the finals for sure. But as you said, they're missing Middleton. So what are you thinking, Celtics Bucks?
I don't know. I've kind of gone back and forth on this a little bit. I texted my friends this, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm saying Celtics in 7.
Wow.
Although I really wouldn't be surprised either way. I want to say that I feel like Kevin Durant and Kyrie were shut down like crazy. I think the Celtics defense is really good. But I think part of that is also a little bit of fool's gold with that. Where, because like you said, it wasn't a typical sweep. Every game was within 5 points in the last few minutes. Like, it could have gone either way. But I think that a lot of what was causing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to kind of falter isn't so much because of the defense, but because they just kind of flopped and folded. Neither of those guys are really the best at being, like we talked about Chris Paul earlier, being that type of leader that could stabilize stuff. I mean, Kevin Durant had some like very uncharacteristically bad quarters, bad halves.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to necessarily happen as frequently with the Bucks. However, I do think the Celtics are really good. I could see Jason Tatum having like one of those like signature series where people are like, oh wow, he's a really good player. But I do think the Bucks in the end will be missing Chris Middleton. And game 7 on the road would be really tough to do. So that's why I'm going with the Celtics. But kind of like I said with Dallas and Phoenix, I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Wow. I haven't even given it thought on a pick yet, but you make such a compelling, compelling argument. And I think an X factor for the Celtics is getting their center back. And while he didn't look great, I think whenever you come off an injury like that and you're out for a while, he came back about 2 weeks early, you're going to be a little bit rusty. But I think as that series goes on, he's going to make a big difference in stopping Giannis and really, solidifying that inside game. I mean, and Jason Tatum is playing at just an absolute another level. I just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable the way he's playing. So I'm gonna go with your pick. I'll say Celtics in 7, and not because Dave, we want you back on, but uh, there's just something. There seems to be something special about them this year. All right, Miami and the Sixers. Sixers are just such a weird team, man. I can't put they're an enigma still to me. And I love that they, Tobias Harris, Danny Green. I just love their bench. People are saying they don't have a great bench, but Maxey has just turned into an excellent player. I think they're more than Harden and Embiid. Embiid is at another level. He's showed his toughness last night. He got elbowed in the head and, it got, cut, but he was ready to come back in. It was just, I don't know. I can't put my finger on them. They're such a good team. And I love Doc Rivers, but I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? And Miami is just, I mean, they did it without Jimmy Butler in that last game. They're such a good team. But what's your thoughts on Miami and the Sixers?
It's another one of those. I feel like I can't really make a good pick on it. Because part of me really low key, I wouldn't mind seeing the Sixers there because I feel like Doc Rivers kind of needs to get a little bit of the I fold in the playoffs off his back. And Embiid is the same way.
He got angry about
James
that.
Harden.
Yeah, he got angry when they questioned him about that. They're very defensive, uncharacteristic of him. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I agree because I feel bad for him in that sense. But I mean, he is the only guy that's blown 3-3-1 lead. So, and especially you have a 3-1 lead and then you lose game 5, it just doesn't look good. But Harden also, he'll get a lot of flack if they don't make the finals or at least the conference finals, for kind of causing the ruckus that destroyed Brooklyn, so to speak. But also, Miami is a very well-run team. Eric Spoelstra is an excellent coach. Kyle Lowry's won a championship. Jimmy Butler's been to a finals. It's a team that plays really hard. Butler's injury kind of concerns me a little bit. But I feel like this might be one of those, the chips fall in the Sixers' favor this time around. I wouldn't be surprised once again if Miami wins because they were in the finals 2 years ago. Granted, a lot of people didn't think they'd make it there, but I do think that the type of year for Embiid. I think Embiid is kind of, especially if he doesn't win the MVP, which will probably end up being Jokic, I think he's going to kind of play with more intent, like, okay, fine, I don't win the MVP. I'll win the title instead. I think also James Harden, one of his biggest issues has always been that he kind of seems to run out of gas towards this time of the playoffs. But I think having a guy like Embiid and him kind of taking a step back might help. Also, like you said, they have a good bench. They have a really good supporting staff around them. And I think because of that, you'll kind of see yes, Embiid's going to give you 25 a night. Harden's going to give you 20 and 10. But these random spurts from other guys is going to be a big key for them. So I think that they'll end up pulling it off.
No doubt. No doubt. Wow. So I'm not going to go with you there, though. I think Miami is just too good for the Sixers. I think that would I be shocked? No, if the Sixers won. But I just think that Miami and the Celtics and I couldn't tell you who I would pick from those two teams. But Miami and the Celtics, they just seem like they're having a special year. And I love to see Doc Rivers get back to the finals. with with a different team. But I don't know, man. I think well, and I just said I do like the Sixers bench. I think that they have some good supporting players, veterans who have, and not even their bench. Some of those guys are starting, right? Like Tobias. But their secondary players I do like. But Miami is deep, man. They are, with Hero and Robinson, and like you said, Kyle Lowry with his championship, pedigree, Jimmy Butler. I mean, they're just a deep, deep team. And I think while I don't want to give the edge to coaching, but Spoelstra has won a championship, a couple of championships. And Doc hasn't just yet, even though I would almost look at those coaches as a little bit equal. So I got to go with Miami, but I do think that's going to be a long series, either 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. Now it starts to get fun. I mean, the first round was fun. I mean, Celtics and Nets, I thought I saw that was the highest rated first round series, all 4 games of all time. So people were into that.
Wow.
People were into that all over the country. I think part of that is a little hating too, right? I think, a lot of the country wanted to see Durant. Let me ask you this question and we'll pivot to baseball. I was thinking about this because it doesn't seem to me that this is ever going to work with the Nets. I just don't. For some reason in my gut, and I'm almost a little bit happy it didn't happen with the Knicks because it was very close, right? Those 2 guys could have easily come to the Knicks. Is the era of pairing the superstar players, is that starting to wind down and come to an end? And that being said, we've just spent a little time talking about Harden and Embiid, teaming up and doing some special things, but starting to get the feeling that the stars, like behind the scenes coming together, which kind of started with LeBron, but if you go back a little bit, it started more with the Celtics and Pierce and Garnett and Ray Allen all making their way up to Boston, and it worked for them because they, got to the finals, they won a championship. But is that era starting to come to a little bit of a close?
I would say yes and no. Because the NBA, it's still like such a player-led league, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I do think just like picking your buddy to come with you somewhere is probably going to start to go. Because like you didn't mention LeBron. He wanted Westbrook, and obviously that did not work out well this year.
Not at all.
And like Katie and Kyrie, like say, and it's funny because I never really thought about it. I don't remember who it was that said it, but like when you look at all the dynasties, whether you're talking the Warriors, whether you're talking the Heat, whether you're talking the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, like all of them have like a Hall of Fame level coach. And Katie and Kyrie are like, well, we don't even really need a coach. Like we could coach this team.
Yeah.
And like
timing is everything, right? The timing for them to say that was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I think because of that, like you need a full rounded team. And I think if you have the right pieces together, like Embiid and Harden is a good fit because they're not kind of the same player.
Yeah.
Kyrie and Katie are not a good fit because I feel like both of them are very good Robins and they're not a good Batman. They're really good if they don't have to lead the team. So like I think that they really need that. Like Katie and Steph was such a good combination because like Steph was the leader, Katie just had to worry about scoring. Kyrie and LeBron worked because LeBron was the leader, Kyrie could kind of do his thing. So like I think I don't think that combination will work. But also I think players around the league will start to look and be like, well, maybe I should look to see if they're a good fit, not just necessarily if I like them.
Wow. You said, man, I'm not even adding anything to that. I think I do think you still need 2 great players, but I think sometimes that'll at least 2 great players to get to the finals these days. But Giannis has really gotten there without another great player. And I'm not sure I would say Jaylen Brown is a great player, just yet. I think Jason Tatum is. I don't know. Is there anyone on Miami currently that's a great player, superstar? I don't know. They've just got such a lot of really excellent players. Chris Paul, that was a trade. So, him with Booker, has produced some special things. So I just don't know. I think I think you hit it. I think let the GMs figure out what two players would mesh well together as opposed to those players figuring it out. Because you're right, the Kyrie KD thing, maybe they're both the same. Maybe, like you said, maybe they're both Robins. And it's funny. I'll say this last thing. We'll pivot to baseball because I was rooting for Durant because I think he's kind of had an understated, underrated career, being one of the top players that I've ever seen, especially for that size. But I shouldn't feel bad for him because he does have two championships, with Golden State. But we tend to forget that. It's almost like we look at him like he doesn't have a championship because he was really just a piece, on those teams. He wasn't the main guy, even though he won the Finals MVP both times that they won the championship with him. So I don't know, but I think I'm glad you're with me there because I just don't think that this pairing is ever going to work. I just came to that conclusion, watching them this week and then hearing them afterwards. I just think, well, especially Kyrie after, and I've taken up for Kyrie a few times, but hearing him after say, "Hey, yeah, we just want to run the team," and I know he was saying, "Okay, run the team on the floor and everything like that," but then he expanded. He wants to, they should have a say so in trades and everything like that. Let their GM do his job. I mean, come on, you do your job on the court. That's, I don't know. All right, let's pivot to baseball because we've got a bunch of quick things to talk about here. First, I want to give you some space. Your Yankees won again yesterday. They're really getting into gear. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about what happened Saturday at the stadium. I know you were angry about that. So what's been the turnaround here with the Yankees? 6 in a row? I think they won, right?
Yeah, 6 in a row.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start out with the weekend where I could have had ultimate bragging rights over all of my Guardian fans around here, but I feel like a lot of the sting was taken out of it when the whole incident with Miles Straw and the right field bleacher creatures, which we've sat in those seats before. They can be very rowdy.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the number one, good for the Yankees who were celebrating a walk-off win, but then they go to back up their opponents. Judge going out there, Stanton going out there, Garrett Cole also was out there trying to tell the fans go home, get out of here. When arguably that win was their best win of the season.
It was a great win. Yeah.
They guys throwing 100, 101 mile an hour cutters. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who's had an excellent couple of weeks here, gets a huge double to tie the game. Gleyber Torres, who was benched, hits a walk-off single, and then you have to deal with that. There's another video that came out where Miles Straw is kind of getting up in a fan's face and saying, fight me, which to me is not necessarily professional. We talked a little bit about that with Kyrie a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But bottom line, if you're a fan, you just won the game. No reason to be throwing stuff at players, throwing stuff at the umpires. And also, you shouldn't be glorifying a guy getting injured, which is kind of what set Miles Straw and Oscar Mercado off. Was that Stephen Kwan, who's been the sensational rookie, one of the early candidates for Rookie of the Year. He's running into the wall, kind of is shaking up a little bit. You can't be laughing at that. I will say not all Yankee fans are like that, but also you kind of see there's the whole this is how all the Yankee fans are, blah, blah, blah. So I'm a little frustrated by that, but also, what it is at this point. The Yankees have had an excellent week. It's crazy what a week can do in baseball, where you're the Yankees could barely beat the Orioles. and now they've swept both the Orioles and the Guardians. I think, especially with this schedule the way it is now, they're doing exactly what they need to be doing. The pitching still seems to be excellent. Garrett Cole had a great start on Sunday, so I hope he can continue to build on that. But I think the real star recently has been Anthony Rizzo, who currently is number 1 in home runs in all of baseball and number 3 in RBIs. He's a guy that it was like, well, you could have had Freddie Freeman, you could have had Matt Olson, and you kind of settled for him, and he's been excellent. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is kind of the same. Carlos Correa's gotten off to a bad start. Javi Baez has Corey Seager have been okay. Out of all of those guys, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has a better batting average, I believe, a better OPS plus, a better WAR. I mean, WAR this early is kind of, but he's been excellent. And
wow,
I think overall it's been like he was very nervous. He even said himself he was very nervous coming over. Started out like a batting average of around 100, but like he's kind of figured out his footing. And really the offense is starting to come alive. Aaron Judge has started out kind of slow. He's hit a couple of home runs here. Joey Gallo, who was my guy I want to root for, has hit 2 home runs.
Yeah.
So like things, yeah. So things are starting to turn around. I'm liking the direction they're going in. We got the Royals this weekend, who have kind of been, the whole NL Central has been like bad. The Twins are the only team over 500. Everyone else is at least 3 games under 500.
I thought the Royals would have been. Yeah, I thought the Royals would have gotten off to a better start. Also, no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say also your Mets, though, but we could talk about that in a second.
Yeah. My last quick comments on the Yankees. I'll tell a very, very quick story. You may or may not remember this, because you're right. I remember sitting in those bleachers several times, actually, you and I. But it was the fans would have fun, and the one that it was nothing ever really vicious. The one that stands out was next to this side of Bobby Bonilla is probably the most overpaid player ever, and that was Vernon Wells. Do you remember him? And in Toronto, we went to see them in the Blue Jays, and he made an error. He made a really bad error. Like I think a ball went through his legs, rolled all the way to the wall. The fans are getting on him, but it's like a fun thing almost. And he's like, with his hand, I don't know if you remember, he had his hand like in his back pocket, and he's kind of waving to the fans like with his hand in his back pocket. And then I don't remember who it was. Someone hits a shot up the gap into right center. It looks like it's destined to be a double or triple. And this was where Wells was really actually a good player who probably, I never got the feeling he played all that hard, but he runs this down and slams into the wall, holds on to it, makes just a great, great catch. And there was an appreciation, of it. And, he turns around after he throws the ball in, he tells the fans to keep quiet now, and it was just a fun thing back and forth, and I don't know where that has changed. Certainly that's not indicative of all Yankee fans. We know that, but just, and listen, Quan should not have climbed up on the fence and got into the fans' face. That was a bad look as well. But that was a horrible, horrible scene at the end. Well, like you said, was the best one of the year. And the way they pulled it out, but for them to have to, which I give them a lot of credit, right? Judge was the one who said, let me go out here, who noticed it right away. And, he knows that he's got that influence with the fans. I thought that was great. The last quick thing on the Yankees is I never say I told you so, but I got to say that this time, Anthony Rizzo, remember I said when they picked him up last year, that's a great. He just seems to me like he was destined to be a Yankee, because he's a leader. He plays hard, and he never has been a big home run guy, but he's a big RBI guy. But in that stadium, just because of his size and the way he hits the ball, he's going to hit a lot of home runs. And I love the start that he's off to, because I think he's a very kind of underrated star. He really is. And the Cubs would not want their championship without him. He's a leader, and I think he's what the Yankees needed. So I'm not surprised he's doing well. I'll be real quick on the Mets, because I definitely want to get to the 3,000 hit question. The Mets are playing extremely, extremely well. there's a point in baseball, you and I are never advocates for a bench clearing brawl or anything like that, but we are advocates. I think we're both fascinated by it, right? Because that's the only sport where everybody comes out, right? And typically not much happens. This one was close, and he could, because both teams were angry. Even the Cardinals were a little bit angry, and I'm not sure why, because Arenado is a veteran. I didn't understand his reaction. The deal. I'm going to hit your best player. That's kind of those unwritten rules in baseball. So it was either going to be him or Goldschmidt that was going to get plunked, and he happened to be up, and he didn't even get hit. It wasn't crazy close. Now, you shouldn't be throwing it high. I'm not an advocate for that. And there's no way that any of the Mets were hit on purpose, especially JD, because it loaded the bases. And there's no way you were going to hit Alonso in the head like that on purpose. These are pitches that just got away. But I understand what Buck is saying, that, hey, at some point, though, we've got to retaliate, and we've got to take up for our team. That was just a hair away from being just an ugly, ugly brawl with a lot of suspensions, because I don't know why the coach tackled Alonso like that. Alonso wasn't going to fight. Alonso's just not that type of guy. He's such an easygoing guy. He was out there. You could tell he wasn't going after Arenado. He was just kind of trying to break things up. And I don't know why the coach. That coach is really lucky, because Alonso's a lot bigger than him. Alonso's a lot bigger than a lot of people. But I think that the Mets going forward, this does bring them together. This does, show them that, hey, we are going to stick together as a team. Fundamentally, the Mets are just playing great. You talk about the Yankees having the best win of the year on Saturday. Mets had the best win of the year that Monday night game. Out of all people, Arenado makes an error that extends the inning. And then Dom Smith hits a bullet. Goldschmidt, no surprise that he comes up with the ball, but the pitcher is just standing there. It doesn't run to first base in time. And then he's standing there and lets the second run score. And then, of course, Brandon Nimmo hits a home run to really extend the lead. I mean, because Scherzer was so good in that game, it would have been a shame if they had lost. And that was just a great, great win to score 5 runs in the 9th inning in St. Louis against an excellent, excellent team, by the way. Cardinals are going to be really, really good this year. So
yeah,
I'm totally happy with what the Mets are doing. So let's pivot, because you sent me a great question. So Miguel Cabrera, I mean, he's the other thing you sent me, that he's the only one that 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, and a Triple Crown. Only one in history.
Yeah.
Amazing. He's had just an unbelievable career. Can I tell you this real quick, and then I'll get to the question. I was listening to the Dan Levitard show, and one of the guys that's on his network now is David Samson, who was the GM for a long time with the Marlins. But he's also, unfortunately, the GM that traded Miguel Cabrera to Detroit. So he was very defensive, because they were making fun of it and stuff like that. But I didn't realize this. He said at that time, he got the number 1 prospect in baseball through Baseball Almanac, and the number 2 prospect in that trade. He said that, they knew they weren't going to be able to sign him. And he still had 2 years left on his contract with the Marlins, which they killed him about 2. But he said the value goes down if you go into that last year. So that was why he traded him when he did. I think Dontrell Willis was in that trade as well. But he said no one would have said 2 words if both of those prospects would have lived up to their potential. Neither one of them ever really made it to the majors. One came up for just a bit and was a total bust. The other one got hurt in the minors, never got past his injuries. And so he defended the trade. Detroit gave up, a lot. Remember, Detroit was really, really bad through then. So they had all these great prospects that were coming up that did pan out for them after a while, because they became a really good team for a long time. But they traded away the top 2 to get Cabrera and Dontrell Willis, and he said it just didn't pan out. It was that was really interesting. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
I pulled up the trade here. It's interesting seeing some of these names, actually. So traded for Cameron Maybin.
Yeah.
Who's not a good broadcaster. Andrew Miller, who just retired.
Right.
Eulogio de la Cruz, Mike Rabelo, Burke Badenhop, who I've heard of before, and Dallas Traherne.
Yeah, De La Cruz was the top prospect that never panned out. That played, I think, a handful of games, he said, with the Marlins. It never panned out. And then one of those other names was like the number 2 prospect in the country, not just, and they were both in the Detroit system. And Detroit gave them both up to get Cabrera.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, hey, what a special player. 5 years from now, he's got to go right into the Hall of Fame, or whenever he retires. I'm saying 5 years from now. He should walk away at the end of this year, though. So we'll see, although he could probably still hit for another couple of years. So your question was, who's the next person to get to 3,000 hits? I'll give mine real quick because I went against some of the guys that they were saying, and the guy I think will be next. And we're not going to know this for several years. So I think the guy they're saying, well, I won't even say, I'll just say my guy. I think that Bryce Harper will be next. I think if he stays healthy, he's still young enough. He's a little under 1,300 hits right now, so he's got a long way to go. But I think that if he stays healthy, which is always the big thing, I think that he'll be the next guy for 3,000 hits.
Yeah. I'm going to go with one because just to kind of give a little bit of an overview. So currently there are 5 guys that have over 2,000 hits. Pujols and Cabrera, who both have 3,000. Robinson Cano, who's in his age 39 season, 26-31, so he's about 300 away. He's not getting there. Yadier Molina, who's in his last season, he's already kind of said that. 21-20, he's not getting there. Joey Votto, who's 38, he's got 20-35. And then you got Nelson Cruz, who's old. Elvis Andrus, who's got a ways to go. Andrew McCutchen, too. Evan Longoria, Jose Altuve, Justin Upton, who I don't even think is active right now. No. Freddie Freeman is kind of older, too. I think the guy that I'm going with, he's 19th on the list now, and that's Manny Machado.
Oh, okay.
He has 1,455, so he's about 545 hits away. The guy also plays. I'm gonna pull up his stats here, but he always he never gets hurt. He's a guy that's pretty reliable. Just to kind of put this in perspective here, so last few years here, 2015 played in all of 162. 2016 157. 2017 156. 2018 played in 162, split between Baltimore and the Dodgers. 2019 156. 2020 he played in all 60 games. 2021 153. So far this year he's played in 20 out of the Padres. I don't know how many games they played yet, but
yeah. Wow.
So he always plays. The Padres played 20 games, so
that's a
so
great.
He's always there.
Yeah.
500 hits is not that long. Like you're talking maybe if he gets.
Well, you said he has 14, 50, so he's like halfway there, right?
Yeah, he's got 1455.
Okay, so he's just about, he's coming up on halfway there. Okay. And he's what, 30?
Does about 100.
He's 29. Okay.
So he's about halfway there. Usually about 150 hits a year. So kind of doing the math, we'd be talking about seasons. But I think overall, and that's assuming A, he stays healthy, and B,
that's a great one.
He continues his stretch, but
yeah. Well, if the first half of his career here, he follows that pattern, he'll definitely be the guy. Wow, that's awesome. Unfortunately, Cano, man, it's not going to happen for him. I don't think he's going to play much more this year. In fact, I think that his roster spot is probably going to be in some danger when, rosters get cut down, I think next week from 28 to 26. He just has not, unfortunately, he hasn't looked good. And part of me feels bad for him, but it's his own doing, unfortunately at that age to miss a year, it's brutally hard to come back. And, Dom Smith and JD Davis should be taking that DH spot. instead of Robbie. But we'll see what happens. There's always injuries. I don't know what they do though. You're not going to put him into minors, so I don't know what they do if they cut him. That's a ton of money that they have to pay him out. But they might be willing to do that. Unfortunately. And then if they cut him, I don't know who picks him up. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's in his last year of his contract, right?
Nah, he's got one more year.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think
yeah.
you can cut him.
Yeah, he's got this year and next year. They're going to be in a little bit of a difficult. Buck, to his credit, has downplayed it, but they're going to be in a very difficult position with him this week coming up, because Travis Janikowski's fit in extremely well. Has done really, really well. I mean, there's 3 or 4 other guys on that bench that have done a lot better than Robbie has. So we'll see. I love that. So Altuve was the one that they said, the article you had sent me, that is they think would do it next, but he's got like over 1,700 hits, but that's still a long way away, and I think he's 32, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think we'll see guys in our lifetime come up if they stay healthy, like Tatis, Soto. I think some of those guys that are just starting out and started out like at 19, 20 years old, if they play 20 years, I think we'll see them do it. It's staying healthy, which is a key, right? Guys like, if you look at anybody on that 3,000 hit list, one of the one constants is that they were never out for long periods of time, like, Eddie Murray, or, even guys that we remember, Jeff Bagwell, not Jeff Bagwell, but who was
Craig Biggio.
Craig Biggio. None of those guys were ever out for, Derek Jeter even didn't get hurt until, the end of his career. So, all right, we got to get ready to wrap up. So our last question, our question of the week: who are you rooting for this week? And I'll tell you mine, and then you can say yours, and you can wrap us up. That would have to be, for me, that's going to have to be one Chris Paul. It is going to be interesting at 37 years old to see if he gets through this tough, him and his team get through this tough Dallas series. But I'm rooting for him to win a championship this year, because he's just been a great ambassador for the game, a great player. He's intense on the floor. Makes 1,000,001 commercials, but I'm rooting for Chris Paul this week. Who are you rooting for?
Well, you took one of mine, Chris Paul. But also I'll stick with a Yankee. I'm rooting for Garrett Cole. I think that he still has a lot of the whole sticky stuff thing to deal with. Maybe next week we can talk about the letter that said nothing. But but I feel like Cole has gotten a bad rap. His best game came after they started cracking down on the spider tack and all that. So I feel like him having another good start, he does start on Saturday, can really prove that he is the pitcher that the Yankees paid him to be. I think a lot of his slow start was spring training stuff and not really being ready for the season, which is still on him. And I think also you look at like the way that last year ended, him having a horrible wild card game and a bad September, which probably can be attributed to an injury, not necessarily his play. I'm really rooting for him. Yankees have him for another 7 years, so I kind of have to root for him. But I think a good weekend would be really good for him. I think it'd be really good for the Yankees, because right now they have one of the top ERAs in all of baseball, and that's with Garrett Cole bringing that ERA down. So him being right can make this team very, very dangerous.
All right. That's a good one. All right. Here comes the music on the podcast side. Take us home.
All righty. This is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny.
With sports on the positive tip, we'll have a really good, fun weekend here. So enjoy it.
Absolutely. Enjoy.